This is the face of a man entering his villain arc after securing the premium time travel package. His scheme was flawless, a revenge strike targeting his ex-wife's inner circle, her sister, her mother, and her friends. These all things began just a few days ago when he discovered that his wife of 2 years betrayed him for a Mario Smash Bros. Player. The moment he uncovered the truth, he walked away instantly like a true king, because real love would never betray. Jisoo, his wife, tried to stop him, but this only fueled his rage past. He couldn't believe she thought he'd simply let this slide like some Ligma mail. Without hesitation, Bro summoned divorce papers out of nowhere, like he got some JoJo-level powers to summon things. He demanded she sign them, then slammed the door shut behind him, wishing her a wonderful time with the lowlife. Jisoo collapsed to her knees in despair. Logically, Kong figured the only solution for this emotional damage was drowning it in an unholy amount of drinks at a Korean barbecue. As he sat there brooding over 4 years wasted on someone worthless, a familiar voice called out to him, calling him son. Turns out, word travels faster than the light. His mother-in-law had already tracked him down to check on him. But this Asian mom was living proof that not all Asians raise him. At first, Bro prepared himself for a guilt trip lecture, but instead his mother-in-law came for him, completely devastated, crushed that her own daughter had become the source of his pain. She kept apologizing non-stop and blaming herself for not being a better mother to Jisoo. Still, the mom told Kong he was the perfect fit for their family, which hit him hard, emotionally cooking him, since he knew he had poured his everything into the relationship. But as she kept opening up and revealing her true feelings, a strange thought started coming into Kang's mind. He began throwing odd glances her way, slipping in even weirder thoughts. By the end of the night, Kong was completely exhausted, realizing his only clear thought, that he might actually miss his mother-in-law more than his wife. Anyway, as she guided him into the taxi, she leaned in close, looking as if she was about to tell him something that could change the entire series. But just as she was about to grand reveals, she stopped and muttered, "Never mind." And with that, our boy was left, wondering what truth she was going to reveal. He shut his eyes, and in what felt like an instant, 10 minutes vanished. Unaware of the looming disaster, he slept soundly until he was jolted awake by the taxi driver's scream, as if someone had just stolen his waifu model. The next moment, Kong found himself face-to-face with none other than Truck-kun, with lights on. One blink later, he was struck down, caught in an unexpected wave of pain after his fateful encounter with Truck-kun. As Jisoo deactivated her ball-crushed domain, Kang's pain froze for a moment. His mind too clouded with confusion to process what was happening. This definitely wasn't the heaven he expected. To his shock, Jisoo casually mentioned that he had been in clap mode with her all night, so she'd let it slide this time since he has successfully raided her dungeon. Still dazed and unsure of reality, Kong glanced around, only to realize he was in her old room, the same one from their dating days years ago. Nevertheless, while Kong took his sweet time, realizing he'd just been traveled into the past, Jisoo cheerfully waved him off, gushing about how excited she was for their wedding date. Once she left the house, Kong frantically searched the room and stumbled across an old journal of his own, only to see the date marked as 2 years ago. Before he could process it, his phone rang with a furious call from his manager, chewing him out for being late. At work, every pair of eyes locked onto him, shocked, since Kong was never late. He hurried to report to the department head, and thankfully, the homie let it slide, knowing Kang's wedding was coming up soon. But just then, disaster struck when Kong casually called him department head. The whole room froze because till now, the man hadn't even been promoted yet. At lunchtime, a wild Jisoo suddenly appeared, popping up beside Kong like a full-on jump scare. He had forgotten that back in the day, his wife worked in another department at the same company. As usual, she tried to yank him straight out of his chair, since this was their love routine. A lunch date every time. But today, Kong was an immovable object, unable to stomach her presence. Finally, he snapped, shouting that it wasn't necessary before shoving her away, catching her completely off guard with his new attitude. He then stormed off, ignoring her entirely like an absolute Chad. But from around the corner, a mysterious girl quietly observed everything while the surrounding public gasped in shock at what felt like a total chaos from the least likely couple. The violet head stood at a distance, smiling. Her name was Hanul, another manager at the company, but her vibe was instantly sus, especially when she swooped in and told Jisoo she had never seen Kang angry before. Soon after, Hanul started dropping subtle hints that she knew something deeper was going on between them. She declares that she knows for sure the issue will be resolved, while smirking as if she's got outsider knowledge. Meanwhile, Kang walked onto the company rooftop, trying to vent and cool his head, unable to bear being around Jisoo, even if she was looking like she was in her prime. Busy thinking how to rewrite the timeline like Doctor Strange, he was suddenly ganked from behind by Hanul, who introduced herself as Jisoo's assistant manager. At first, Kang hoped she might be a decent distraction, but his tension only grew when she brought up how much she wished he and Jisoo would reconcile before the wedding. Staying tight-lipped, Kang forced out that everything was fine, but Hanul just laughed, her innocent aura shattering instantly. Calling him out for capping, she handed him her phone, revealing pictures of Jisoo sneaking into a motel, a place notorious for cultured anime training, with another guy. Kang was left speechless, realizing she'd been unfaithful from the very beginning. Sensing his turmoil, Hanul seized the moment, enticing him with the promise of a new side quest later that evening. That evening, instead of heading home to his clingy girl, Kang chooses to meet Hanul at their spot, leaving Jisoo wondering where the heck her boyfriend had gone after work. Without hesitation, he barged into the top-floor office, only to find Hanul sitting on her desk with a Susie aura, patiently awaiting for his arrival. Kang angrily demanded more information for the truth. But Hanul, in Susie mood, unleashed her Susie domain like the opening scene of a cultured anime. If this had happened 2 years ago, Kang's life would have been different. But this Kang was different, his mind focused solely on uncovering the truth. Regardless, unfazed by Kang's resistance, Hanul leveled up her tactics by deploying the cursed foot technique to nullify the physical barrier, all while hinting she had even more proof. As Kang's eyes widened, she pulled him closer, warning that top-tier intel always comes at a top-tier price. But judging by his expression, our boy clearly wasn't catching the Susie hint. Nonetheless, Kang's inner Chad wasn't having any of it. Forced to drop the act, Hanul cut straight to the point. She'd spill everything she knew about Jisoo, but on one condition only if Kang agreed to face her in a one-on-one duel right here and now. But Kang immediately shut down her so-called win-win deal. Bro despised being pushed around like some puppet, and his anger meter blasted off the charts. Flipping the script, he called her out directly, demanding to know what she was really after, since he'd barely even met her. The question caught Hanul completely off guard. Realizing Kang was a tough to crack, she pivoted fast, this time striking at his emotions. She asked if he'd ever thought about revenge on Jisoo, revealing they had something in common. Jisoo had stolen from them both something they could never get back. With the plot twist thickening, Hanul locked eyes with him, her voice brimming with main character energy. "Look, King," she declared, urging him to take her offer, since they shared the same goal. But this Kang wasn't the same character she had scouted before. He was freshly buffed, a different demon altogether. And before she could even react, he seized her hands. One moment, she was making a CEO-level pitch. The next, she was facing the ceiling, thrown straight into a 1-versus-1 arena against Kang. Meanwhile, Kang hyped himself up, declaring it was time to show this low-level player who the real raid boss was. Activating an overpowered stunlock skill, he pinned her hands to the desk, locking down any chance of movement. Nodding with confidence, he bopped along as he pulled out his ultimate weapon, the legendary iPhone 17 Pro Max. This beast of a device carried a secret ultra-OP ability, the power to instantly deploy into and retreat from an opponent's secret domain as long as Kang kept physical contact. The skill hit like a super effective crit. Within seconds, Hanul's brain cells went AFK, trapped in what felt like eternal bliss. Her internal monologue reduced to the Windows 10 shutdown sound on endless loop. 5 minutes later, she finally respawned when Kang pocketed his phone and revealed his true secret weapon, a legendary cream roll. At that moment, Hanul had awakened Kang's inner menace, his full-on final boss form, preparing for blast-off like the freshly crowned CEO of Twitter. Moments later, Kang's majestic, highly pristine rocket, primed for peak performance, launched toward its designated mission area, sending its lone scientist on a truly critical expedition. The post-mission review? 5 stars. The pilot? Beyond veteran status, perhaps even a certified sensei of the highest order. But after barely a minute of this surprise training arc, Hanul was already trying to forfeit the duel. Kong only laughed, a deep rumble echoing with raw dominance. Nah, fam, you're tripping. I'm not even using a third of my cream roll power. This match won't end until Gear 5 unlocks. And so, the duel raged on. Kang's skills skyrocketed, power levels spiking way past 9,000. Their clashing auras shook the air, culminating in a full-on Dragon Ball Z fusion dance that fried Hanul's synapses, leaving her brain short-circuited under the overwhelming intensity. Eventually, Kong, having completely styled on his low-level opponent, took a pause. He had to make sure Hanul didn't actually pass out from the sheer overload of their training arc. But little did the assistant manager know, this was only Phase 1. Just when she thought it was GG, Kong triggered Phase 2. Halfway in, Hanul was barely hanging on, clinging to dear life as reality-bending abilities she didn't even know existed rained down, every single one landing as a critical hit. The onslaught only stopped when Kong unleashed his domain expansion, dropping her agility stat straight to 0 and draining her energy onto the office floor. Having thoroughly dominated and cleared his side quest, Kong casually snatched her phone, airdropping all the receipts to himself. Then, with a cold, razor-sharp warning, watch your mouth, he reminded her that Jizu was handled solo, no backup required. Regardless, Hanul lay utterly defeated, half awake, sprawled across a desk worth more than most people's annual salary. A flex so disrespectful it was basically a power move in itself. An hour later, she finally summoned enough strength to peel herself off the overpriced furniture. Still dazed, still processing how Kong had transformed into a beast in just a single day. But Kong had no clue he was about to stumble straight into a side quest he wasn't ready for. Hidden in the shadows of the office, a second phone sat recording everything. The duel, the chaos, the fork resolution. Meanwhile, in park, Kong sat frozen, staring blankly at the fresh set of photos in his hands. He knew those cakes better than anyone. The evidence was undeniable. Cold, hard proof that Jizu had betrayed him long before their marriage. And that revelation sent him spiraling even deeper into the abyss. Kang's crushed can rolled onto the dirt like a fallen relic, glinting under the park lamp as if marking the start of a new saga. His vow for revenge wasn't just words, it was destiny in motion. But then, plot twist. Out of the bushes, Jizu's younger sister popped out. "Hey, why are you drinking alone? Everyone's worried you haven't gone home," she asked, her voice laced with concern. But as she spoke, gears began turning in Kang's head. A new strategy was formulating. The revenge arc had officially begun.